Hello, welcome to another episode of Focus on Tomorrow. Focus on Tomorrow is an education nonprofit organization located in Chicago. Find us on the web at www.focus/on/tomorrow.org. You can also email us at info@focus/on/tomorrow.org. This is a reminder that this is a live call-in show. You can call us at 312-738-1060. Today, my guest is Gianna Baker, who is with Housing Action Illinois. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
So, can you start by telling us a little bit about Housing Action Illinois and the work it does?
Yes, so we are an organization that believes that housing is a basic human right, and really housing is a foundation for families being able to build better lives. And so we have, over the last 30 years, formed a powerful coalition of 150 member organizations throughout the state of Illinois, really with the goal of protecting and expanding quality affordable housing. And so our member organizations are mostly nonprofits. Some of them are homeless service providers, some of them are housing counseling agencies, some are affordable developers, and we also work with housing advocates. And in our 30-year history, we have been a group that has created key housing programs in our state that we have today. So the Illinois Affordable Housing Trust Fund was established through our work and has provided 68,000 units of affordable housing to families. We, through coalition efforts, were able to also co-lead the campaign that resulted in the Illinois Homeless Prevention Program, which has helped to prevent over 100,000 families from going into homelessness. We also co-led a campaign that created the Rental Housing Support Program. And in addition to our advocacy efforts, we also have experts on our team that focus on providing resources and training to housing counseling agencies that are serving our communities by providing financial education, foreclosure prevention services, and also preparing families to become first-time home buyers.
So, as the outreach manager, what are your responsibilities?
Yes, so I usually describe my work at Housing Action as really meeting two needs, or wearing two hats in our organization. And so one role that I participate in is getting our members, working with them to build support for whatever housing legislation or housing policy that we're trying to advocate for. So that looks like helping them sometimes as we go to meet with legislators. It's also the work of actually getting out there to legislators, and sometimes it is also participating in some of the research we do to educate people on housing needs in Illinois. The second hat that I wear at Housing Action is managing our AmeriCorps Vista program. So we have an AmeriCorps Vista program, and our program, and really how AmeriCorps Vista usually describes itself, is that it's a domestic version of the Peace Corps. So we end up getting volunteers who come and work with our member organizations in their communities fighting poverty, and they commit to a full year of service, and in exchange receive some benefits that I'll talk about later.
All right. So why is it important to provide affordable and accessible housing to low-income residents?
Well, we look at it this way when we think about why affordable housing is important. 7.1 million American families can't find an affordable place to live. Mm-hmm. And so what that means is that these families, after they pay for their housing, which usually they're spending more than half their income on housing, they're at a place where they can't afford basic necessities like being able to pay for groceries, transportation just to get to work, child care. Sometimes these families may even be struggling to pay for their health care needs. And so we want to make sure that families are able to live quality lives. And also, when we talk about affordable housing, we really think about the impact on children. So when we talk about the city of Chicago, the average age of a homeless child is 9 years old. And so what happens for these children is that when they don't have stable housing, they're usually dealing with chronic stress. And sometimes with these children, too, their families may move multiple times in the school year. So that means that these children have a really difficult time actually receiving a quality education. And so that's why we really focus on trying to create more housing opportunities for families.
Right. Do you think raising the minimum wage will help low-income Chicago residents afford housing?
Definitely. So we as an organization do support living wage for every resident, and we recently released a report with the National Low Income Housing Coalition called Out of Reach. And so in that national report, what we found that is in order just to afford a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Illinois, a person needs to actually be able to make $19.98 an hour. When we think about that in Illinois, and what that looks like is our minimum wage is only $8.25. And so we know that it's really important for families to be able to have the income so that they can actually afford housing.
So tell us a little bit about the need to secure state funding for affordable housing.
Yes, so again, because we have such a deep or severe shortage in affordable housing in Illinois, we know that the only way that it can really truly be addressed is also through our government assisting and for us to have state funding for housing. And so, as I said before, we've done a lot of work over the years to create resources for affordable housing, like the Illinois Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Rental Housing Support Program, and other programs. And what we find ourselves doing mostly now is trying to protect those programs that we did create so that they're actually used for the purposes of creating permanent affordable housing.
So how can people help you secure that funding?
Well, the main way that we tell people to help us is that we need to influence legislators. And so we know that most people don't necessarily have the time that they can go set up a meeting with their legislator. And so what we do is we have an action alert system, and you can sign up for the action alerts through our website at housingactionil.org. And when you sign up for our action alert system, you receive an email from us, and then you can send that email over to your legislator. Sometimes we have call-ins, and so we'll have a brief script, and you get a chance to call your legislator, give them that script. And the great thing is that not only do you get an opportunity yourself to contact your legislator, you also get an opportunity to pass that on. You can share it with some friends, and then we can get as many people as possible hearing about housing needs that we have in Illinois. And I think what's also important is, especially if you're not working in the housing industry, many times you may not know what the exact needs are in the community. So in addition to our action alert system giving you an opportunity to contact legislators, it also gives an opportunity where you can then just get updates and know what we need to do and what's going on in Illinois.
How has the budget impasse affected people who rely on affordable housing?
Oh, well, when we talk about the budget impasse, we actually have to start before this current fiscal year and before we were in a situation where we had a budget impasse. For several years now in Illinois, we've been seeing major cuts to the human services sector. So that means that many of our agencies in Illinois have been struggling with limited resources to try to meet the needs of their communities well before we even got to a point of having a state budget impasse. And so what has happened now as we have the state budget impasse is that I would say that going almost 12 months now, because when a few weeks will be a full year of not having a budget, means that 90%, there's been a 90% reduction of services that homeless service providers and housing organizations have been able to provide to communities. And so what that looks like, because I think sometimes we can see or hear about numbers like 90%, but not really think about what that means as far as just the human impact. And so a 90% reduction in services means that we have homeless youth who are not being served. it means that we have situations where sometimes families may have a temporary financial crisis. Maybe there's some medical costs and they get a little behind on their rent. The homeless prevention program has been a program that they could turn to and then get a one-time grant, be able to catch up on their rent and stay stably housed. But right now we're in a situation where those resources are very, very small and slim. When we think about people with disabilities, there are folks who are in situations now where they're in state-run nursing homes, and so they're in these institutional settings and unable to live in communities of their choice and near the loved ones, so they're stuck there. And then we have people, when we think about veterans who are homeless now that have actually put their lives on the line for us as a nation, but they're in a situation too where they don't have the resources to get stably housed. And so that's kind of what we think of, not only that impact, but then what we have to look at too. Constantly, I receive emails from colleagues and others where we're learning about organizations sometimes who are closing. We know of organizations where there have been massive layoffs. And so even in those situations with these individuals who have worked in these programs, now they're in a situation where they can't take care of their families too. So one thing that's really critical is that we have right now Senate Bill 2038, and we're really, that was a bipartisan bill passed through the General Assembly, is sitting on Governor Ronner's desk right now. And so what we are encouraging the governor to do is to sign that bill because it provides emergency funding for social services and other programs. It would provide $225 million for programs that are directly geared towards affordable housing. And so what we've been doing is asking the governor to go ahead and sign that legislation.
So you also manage the Affordable Housing Support Project, which is part of the American Corps visa program. Tell us how this program is different from other programs you work with.
Yes, so the AmeriCorps Vista program, as I said, is like a domestic version of Peace Corps, and so we have volunteers who work within our community, serving our member organizations for a full year, and then in exchange for their service, they receive at the end of their time either an education reward or a stipend. They also receive a modest living allowance as they're in our program, and then they also receive a special designation that gives them a priority for federal jobs. And so when they're in our community serving, these AmeriCorps Vista members are able to help our members to do work that they want to do but may not have the resources at the time to do. And so our AmeriCorps Vistas have been able to help our member organizations raise money. So since our program has been around back since 2010, our AmeriCorps Vista members collectively have raised, as far as cash and in-kind donations, $2.5 million. Our AmeriCorps Vista members also have been able to help our organizations recruit volunteers and create volunteer management systems. We also have AmeriCorps volunteers who have been able to help some of our organizations create programs that they've wanted to develop but maybe just didn't have the staff resources to develop at the time.
So what progress is Housing Action Illinois making on its mission?
Well, I would say in our 30-year history, I think now is even a more critical time for us to be around as an organization, because now more than ever, as we see this state budget disaster that we've been dealing with several years, when we think about even the way that the federal budget climate has been, our nonprofits that we work with really need an organization like Housing Action Illinois to be able to provide that united voice, really to advocate for affordable housing, and then also protect programs that we already have in existence for affordable housing. So I think that we've done that really well. we've also have been able to provide resources that our nonprofits have been able to tap into. And so most recently, we became a HUD intermediary. And when I say HUD, that stands for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And so as becoming an intermediary, we have been able to provide resources to housing counseling agencies. We have a network of 26 housing counseling agencies that are affiliates of our HUD intermediary. And so these are not only organizations in Illinois, but we also have some organizations in Indiana and Missouri who are also a part of our intermediary and have been able to apply for joint funding.
So you serve on the governor-appointed board of the Illinois Statewide Independent Living Council. How does the board help you achieve your goals?
Yes, so I've been on that as a council member since 2013. And I really came there from working with our member organizations. So we have member groups called Centers for Independent Living. And these are groups who are part of the independent living movement that really fought for people with disabilities. First of all, to say that people with disabilities are experts on their own needs, that they should have full participation in society. And so one of the priorities that these organizations have had is creating more housing opportunities for people with disabilities. And so I came and started doing work with the Statewide Independent Living Council because it's a statewide planning group that addresses many issues, but one of the common or one of the priorities they had has been creating more affordable housing. And so just to give you an example of why it's so important to create affordable housing and then accessible housing is that people with disabilities who receive supplemental security income are living on a monthly payment of just $733 a month. And so when it comes to housing and that housing that's affordable to them, that means they should only be paying maybe 30% of their income on housing costs. Well, if we look at 30% of 733, we're looking at housing that should be as low as a little over $200 a month. And so when you're living in that situation, not only in the situation of trying to find affordable housing, but also other needs that you may need to make your housing accessible. So if a person has a wheelchair, they may need a wheelchair ramp, or they may need some accommodations or changes within their apartment so that they can just have full access to their apartment. Well, it's difficult, first of all, to find the affordable housing, but then to actually have those accommodations that a person may need. And so affordable housing is important for that issue. And then also, as I had mentioned earlier, there are many people with disabilities who end up in state-run institutional settings, and I would say that are inhumane. And people are isolated, they're separated from their communities, from loved ones, and unable to really live in a community of their choice. And so people end up in those settings and for long periods of time because they don't have the housing that they need. And so in my role in being a part of the Statewide Independent Living Council, as a member, really has been chairing the housing committee so that we can think through and plan and set some goals for how we can work on creating more housing opportunities.
In October, Housing Action Illinois will have its annual conference. What can people expect to learn at that conference?
Yes, so our conference is on October 27th and 28th in Bloomington, and we have one of the largest venues for housing practitioners and advocates in Illinois when we host our conference. And so we'll have 4 key tracks. One track that will focus on providing housing and addressing homelessness. We'll have another track that will focus on housing counseling. We'll have a third track that will focus on developers, and then we'll have a fourth track that will focus on advocacy. We're also considering an organizational development track that really will be focused on equipping executive directors and senior leadership at organizations just for the tools that they need to sustain their organizations. And we're still in the process of confirming our speakers, but we've had several key speakers who are policymakers come to our conference. So definitely make sure that you go to our website and check out the conference.
How else can people help Housing Action Illinois?
So definitely I'm going to say get to our website, join our action alert system, donate to us, take a look at the resources that we have for affordable housing, and get involved. And we'd also love to see you come out to Bloomington and have a chance to go to our conference as well.
So can people of our ages help?
Definitely. So, Shekinah, I want you to go on our website, and I want you to also get on our action alert system and to send out some reminders to your friends to contact legislators.
So if I wanted to get involved, how could I get involved?
So that's one of the ways, so that you could, we have a system where people can become, as individuals, a member of our organization, or you can be a part of our newsletter, or rather action alerts that we send out. And you can contact me as well, and we can talk about other ways that you can be involved.
So if I'm involved, what would be my role?
Definitely. So your role really would be, one, we need help in getting that message out to our legislators, so you would help us to contact legislators. Another thing that you could do too is that we're always looking for stories that people have about their housing situation, and so you could even tell us some of the stories that maybe some of your classmates, the challenges that they're having with housing, and how we can use that to educate the public.
Do this help the poor people, or just low income?
So when we say yes, it does. When we're talking about low income, we're talking about the poorest families in the state.
So how do you hear about them?
Yeah, so as we're working with our member organizations, they're serving as nonprofits, different communities, and so as they're out there serving communities, they're then sharing with us some of the needs that they're seeing in their communities.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
I think that that's it. I think that we've covered everything.
So one more. So I have a couple more questions. So when you mentioned earlier about how people who was once in the army, they don't have housing, I thought that it was already guaranteed that if you was in the force and if you get out, you would be helped.
Yeah, so it should be a guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens again is just that since we have such a shortage of resources for housing, that sometimes they're in situations too where they may be homeless and they may need affordable housing as well.
So how do you hear about the teens that need affordable housing?
The teens and the
Mm-hmm.
affordable housing. So, one way I would highlight that is that we have had AmeriCorps Vista members who have partnered with one of our member organizations, which is the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless. Mm-hmm. And so our Vistas that have served there have been really working to organize homeless youth. And so that's one of the ways that we are connected and learn about issues impacting homeless youth. And then also just as the nonprofits, other members of ours, as they're serving in the community, they're serving families with children. And so we hear about and learn those needs through them as well.
So if they don't have jobs, do you provide them with help them find jobs and also give them a place to stay and food and?
Yes, so I would say with the homeless service providers that we work with, some of them have emergency shelters, and others also provide transitional housing. And then there are some who provide permanent supportive housing, which is housing that's affordable, and then also comes with services. And so those groups in particular try to serve every need. So not just housing, they also provide job counseling. If there are needs for mental health, they serve those needs too. And these groups also really focus on getting families to that place of self-sufficiency so then they can transition on to permanent housing.
All right. I would like to thank you for joining me on the show today. This is a reminder that Focus on Tomorrow is an education nonprofit organization located in Chicago. Find us on the web at www.focus/on/tomorrow.org. You can also email us at info@focus/on/tomorrow.org. Thank you for watching. See you next week.
Thank you.